In today's land investing deal review, the property that I'm talking about is very interesting because it came with two properties. I had a lady contact me. Her and her husband had separated. They had both moved out of state. She had gotten possession of these properties as part of the settlement, so they were all in her name, and she was going to sell them. But it was interesting because one property was a real junk property, and when I looked online, I thought maybe it was worth like $13,000, but maybe it was worth zero. And then the other property seemed to have some value, and it was right along the highway, but she didn't want to separate them. She wanted to sell them both or not at all. So I had to make an offer on both of them. So what did I do? Well, the first property, I offered her $127 for that property. After closing costs, it cost me $807 total to close. So now I had this property. And it looked okay online. I put it up for sale, nothing was happening. So I drove out to it. And sure enough, when I got to it, it was a little rinkety neighborhood with rundown houses. And the property itself was like, the road was here, and then the property kind of sunk down into here. So yeah, I had to convince people when I talked to them. They're like, well, I drove by and looked at it, but it seemed low. And I'm like, oh, builders can fix that. You just pull in some dirt and you level it out, and people get nervous about buying land that they're not sure if they can build on. So I thought I was gonna be stuck with this property. It was the first time I took pictures myself of a property. That didn't seem to help. I lowered the price. That didn't seem to help because originally I listed it for like $13,000 or $15,000, and I was getting calls. So then I lowered it to like $9,000, and then $8,000, and then $4,000, and then $3,000. And people would call and say, well, what's wrong with it? Once I got down below like $7,000, because the property appraiser website said it was worth $13,000. So when I got to $7,000, $8,000, people would call, and the first thing they'd ask is, what's wrong with it? I'd say, well, it has a little bit of low ground, but they just weren't interested. So when I got real low, then I jacked the price back up to like 10 or 11,000. I think I got some drone pictures. I think this is the first one I got some drone pictures. So I got some calls, and eventually, after 3 or 4 years, longest time I ever had a property, I sold it for $4,589. After closing costs, it was $3,637. And my profit margin was $2,830 off of an $800 investment. Now, what would have happened, just knowing what I know, if I would have offered this lady $3,000 or $4,000 for it? I would have broke even or lost money. So yes, people accept low offers. I offered her, cash to her was $127. So you can get started for very, very low. If you're paying the closing costs, for under $1,000, you can buy some of these smaller types of properties and start turning profits. Hopefully it won't take you 3 or 4 years to sell, but if you buy it right, you make your money when you buy, not when you sell. However, even if I had bought it for $3,000 or $4,000, I wouldn't have lost money in the long run because I also bought her other property. And that property I made the highest margins on that I've ever made in my entire life to date on a property. And that is the topic of the next video, so check it out.